All of us want to be busy. All of us are frequently so busy. Busy stacking things into our wheelbarrows. Things that we need, things that we will never need, things that we'd like to have as our possessions, things that we think one day we'll call upon them, perhaps in our stressful times. Some of us are hoarders, and our barrows are full. And some of us don't know what to take with us, and we grab at this and take that. For some of us, our barrows are loaded with angry emotions. Others with our griefs and our sorrows. And some of us continue to look for those things that will make our barrows so full of goodwill. And we want to push those barrows into the future. And for some of us, our barrows are starkly empty. The popular television program and the Antique Roadshow, night after night, has people talking and showing their items that they've retrieved from their attics, that they've carried with them through the generations, holding on to these things. And some of them are startled to find that these items that they've been holding on, some of them are so valuable and some of them are utterly worthless. And yet they've held on to them for years. Now, an American psychoanalyst called Dr. Robert Stollerow, he has written a book. And he went to a conference at which that book would be displayed and discussed. So there it was. He went to the conference and there was a batch of copies hot off the press had been delivered to his display table. And with some excitement, he took hold of one book and impulsively turned round to show it to his wife because he thought she would be equally excited to see his finished work, but she was not to be seen because she had died 20 months earlier. One morning, he had awakened to find her lying across the bed. 4 weeks after her cancer had been diagnosed, and she was dead. At the book launch, there in that moment, he started to relive the trauma of being consumed with horror and sorrow. Later at the conference itself, the conference dinner, he was in the midst of his friends and colleagues from years back. And they seemed to be so vitalized, so much engaged with each other in a lively manner. And he said, I, in contrast, felt deadened and broken, a shell of the man I once had been. They all seemed like strange and alien beings to me, he said. Or more accurately, I seemed like a strange and alien being, no longer of this world, as I stood and watched them. So using my image of the wheelbarrow of his life was there, a reality. But the other reality was also there. On the one hand, there was the reality of his achievement in the book, but the other reality of the emptiness of that wheelbarrow. Dr. William Carlos Williams, a family doctor in America, way back, an accomplished poet, was called to a home to treat or to look after a little girl, a very sick child. And as he stood at the bedside, he realized the traumatic prospects that were facing this child and her family. And as he stood there pondering that image, he looked out the bedroom window. And what he saw provoked him to write a poem that would become one of the great poems of poetry literature and has been studied and repeated over the years. The poem consists of 4 lines. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. That's the poem. So in this address, I'm going to speak about the wheelbarrow. More than that, I'm going to talk about the psychology and the theology of the wheelbarrow. Now, I'd like to tell you that one person who frequently watches these addresses on the internet wrote to me this week, and she lives way up in the country, and she wrote and said to me, knowing what my topic today was going to be, she said, "You must be hard up for topics to talk about if now you're going to be talking about wheelbarrows." I would have liked to have said, not just any wheelbarrow, but a red wheelbarrow. Perhaps that will make the difference. Never mind. I'm going to speak about five aspects of the wheelbarrow. First, the red wheelbarrow of the poem. You might wonder, what on earth? 4 lines, what do they mean? What did the poet doctor, have in mind? From the bedroom of sadness of the sick child, he looked out the window and saw a different world, a very ordinary world of a wheelbarrow left in the rain, and just beside it some white chickens. He was saying that in contrast to the sickness and sadness that was here right in front of him, there was something sacred about the softening sight that he saw through the window. In face of one reality, another reality was not far away. And that other reality, that waiting reality, that new reality, was a transforming reality for him and for thousands of people since he wrote the poem. You see, we can get so overwhelmed by our damaging realities that we miss the other. The biblical letter that we read to the people of Ephesus, written to the people of Ephesus, said we are involved in struggles against forces that we don't understand. Take into yourself the strength that God gives you. And so there it is, another reality. The second aspect of the wheelbarrow. We become part of the sacred salute to the men and women who were the casualties of Gallipoli 100 years ago this week. Over 8,000 young men, Australian young men, amounting to the whole population of a town like Castlemaine, lost their lives. Traumatised, died, and left in the terrain of the Turkish hills. I remember my visit to Shanakli and Gallipoli some years ago. As I reflect on it, it was like a large wheelbarrow containing so many untold stories, unlived lives, lost before they had really lived, most of them 17, 20 years of age. It is impossible, I think, to imagine the human blood shed in that faraway place. The bodies long since merged with the dust of that distant land. At the end of the Gallipoli campaign, 86,000 Turks were dead, 160,000 casualties, 53,000 British and French young men, 8,700 Australians, 2,700 New Zealanders. Unimaginable, you'd think, but it was a reality. The general of that Turkish army became the first president of the emerging new Turkish Republic. He took the name of Ataturk, the father of Turkey, and his words are inscribed on the monument, the huge monument in Gallipoli. Those heroes, his words, those heroes that shed their blood, now lying in the soil of a friendly country. You, the mothers of these men, wipe away your tears. Your sons, now lying in our bosom, are in peace. They have become our sons as well. So from the huge wheelbarrow of pain and grief, of war and destruction and harshness of that Gallipoli peninsula, there is the wheelbarrow of the softening of the human heart. Thirdly, you know that wherever we go, we all run into people pushing their own wheelbarrow. Some are loaded with a good cause. Some are pushing wheelbarrows of their own personal agenda to the advantage of many, or it's their own agenda only for themselves, thinking light of people's lives as they think only of their own. Wheelbarrows can be loaded with all that negative stuff that doesn't lift our humanity at all. But wheelbarrows can also be loaded with an extravagant goodwill. Wheelbarrows can be loaded with food and clean water for people who so desperately need food and clean water. Wheelbarrows, Dr. Celereau said, when we are able to sit with another's pain, their shattered emotional worlds are enabled to shine with a kind of sacredness that calls forth an understanding and caring engagement within which our traumatized states can be gradually transformed into bearable feelings. So much depends on the person who picks up that wheelbarrow and pushes it into the future. And that is the fourth wheelbarrow I speak about today. So much depends on your personality. So much depends on whether you look at the wheelbarrow, the rain and the chickens as just separate items lying there, disconnected, or whether you bring them together in a meaningful relationship which will say something about you and your personality. The poet, his words indicate that he saw in these everyday items possibilities that the observer, any observer, can bring to those objects. He saw a relationship between them. But more than that, he said so much depends on the wheelbarrow. Why? The wheelbarrow is calling out for someone to fill it, to push it, to bring new colour into life. It is a red wheelbarrow, set alongside the white chickens, the symbol of life yet to be lived. If only the right things will come together in the red wheelbarrow. Of course, our destructiveness, our violence, our vindictiveness, our anger, our anxiety can scatter the items all over the place. But from that possibility, there is another, better possibility, surely, of each person making sense of that situation, bringing the pieces together to become part of a changing, vital outlook, a changing personality. So number 5, the wheelbarrow can be just an object, and you can leave it out in the rain, discarded. Or you can pause and study the significance of its identifying colour, of an essential part of the landscape, somehow bonding it all together. The wheelbarrow is sometimes just an object that's used to scatter things, dropping things here, leaving things there, all over the place. So it is here with this poem. It's the wheelbarrow, the rainwater, the chickens. Our own experience can be just like that, lived in pieces, often taking our various pieces and relocating them into other areas of our life, doing the same sort of destructiveness or ill will there and there and there. Or, you see, you can live all over the place. We know that. But the wheelbarrow does something more than that, or it can do. It can gather things together, bring them together. Our lives can break up into those parts of this and that, but rather than remain trapped in our bits and pieces of life, we can embrace this coming together, feeling together again with something extra added to it, to give us a sense of, yes, we are comfortable, we're back home again. The red wheelbarrow is a colour we see against the background. In its identifying colour, it takes hold of our attention and gives connection to everything. Everything depends on a red wheelbarrow. How shall we live in our different worlds? The world of sadness, suffering, that reality over there, or another world that we're also part of. The contrast between the world of harshness and the world of transforming softness. The world as it is in its finiteness and sorrows, and the world of possibilities that can emerge and give us a different world. Recurring traumas and distressing experiences can lead a person to believe that the world is a bad place. And they can carry that to believe in their own inner badness. We're all part of that badness. But there are reminders of the world of goodness, and the goodness that can become integrated into a good self. And that is what we look for as we take hold of this image of the wheelbarrow. So what is the psychology and the theology of the wheelbarrow? Number 1, in the face of the harshest realities, we can look up and see another reality that gives a new look to everything else, a new way of being to everything else. Number 2, the wheelbarrow asks, what will you load into your wheelbarrow? Have you got something good to put in your wheelbarrow? Would you load it with good things? Of course, you could load it with the bad things. What do you have to put in your wheelbarrow? Number 2. Number 3, so much depends on the person picking up the wheelbarrow and pushing it and guiding it into the future. The wheelbarrow depends on the person who will take hold of it and guide it into the future. Number 4, will we use the wheelbarrow to scatter our bits and pieces all over the place? Or will we use the wheelbarrow to gather things together, give them a new purpose, a new way to be? Number 5, the wheelbarrow of the poem says, so much depends on the red wheelbarrow. It is the red to stand out It is shining in the rain. It is the good presence alongside the white chickens, who are also part of a good presence. The little girl lying ill in her bed doesn't see the picture, but the doctor takes it and gives that picture to us. Many people draw the blinds and do not see beyond their present dilemmas and difficulties. But if we open the blinds, you're able to see another world, a different world waiting. Yes, one reality says there is a reality that is ugly and destructive. There is a reality that is loaded with waiting sadness. Yet there is another world, a world that has so much goodness and kindness in it. So much depends on who is pushing the wheelbarrow and what is loaded onto it. Would you please stand? We say together, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And the blessing for this day. May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forwards. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.